Have you ever wondered why your parents say things like, things were so cheap back in the day, or how your phone contract, bank savings, or even population growth works? Today, I'm going to show you how money really grows, how prices increase, and how banks calculate interest in a way that will make your exam questions feel very easy. Okay, so in today's video, we're going to be looking at part 2 when it comes to financial mathematics. If you haven't watched part 1, please go ahead and pause this video, go watch part 1, and once you're done with that, you can come back to part 2. So in this video, like I mentioned, part 2 of financial mathematics, we're moving into real life money concepts. So we're going to be looking at simple interest, compound interest, higher purchase, inflation, population growth, as well as exchange rates. So these are guaranteed exam topics, and once you understand the patterns, you will definitely be able to get full marks. So let's get started. So the first thing that I want to talk about is simple growth or simple interest. So they can refer to it as simple growth or simple interest. So it depends on your textbook, the school, whatever it is. It might be worded differently. So it is beneficial that you know both terms. That way you don't get shocked. So simple growth or simple interest is like growing your height or savings in a straight line. So everything is straight line. So imagine every month or year you add the same amount again and again and again and again. So every year you say 500, 500, 500, 500. That's what we mean when we say straight line. It's the same over and over again. It's the same amount. So let's look at an example. So let's say you start off with 200 Rand, okay? You start off with 200 Rand, you earn 10% every month on the original amount. So on the original amount. And that original amount is literally this 200 Rand. That means you always earn 200. You always earn 20 Rand each time. So that will equals to 20 Rand each time. Because 10% of 200 is 20 Rand. So that's how much you'll get. So meaning month 1, you will get 220 after the interest. Month 2, you'll get 240. Month 3, you'll be sitting on 260, and this increases every time. That's an example of simple interest. It increases every time. So let's look at the formula when it comes to our simple interest. Formula. So the formula for this is A is equals to P, 1 plus I times N. Just like that, where A is the final amount. So how much will you have at the end? P is your starting amount, or some textbooks can refer to it as your initial amount, whichever way you'd like to word it. The I is the interest rate. So it's a decimal. We'll look at some examples in a bit. And then N is the number of years or months. Okay, so that is the formula when it comes to your simple interest. So some exam tips that I can give is, firstly, I must be divided by 100. So if they give you 2%, then you have to say 2 over 100 or 2 divided by 100. That's your value for I. So in the formula, you're not going to just say 2. You have to say 2 divided by 100, and that would be your I value. That's just an example. So I needs to be divided by 100. And then the second thing is, when it comes to months, it needs to be convert to years. So you divide by 12. So if they say to you in 6 months, you convert it to years. If they say 720 months, you have to divide it by 12. So this is very important. These are the tips that are very important. And then 3 is the interest is always on original amount. Original amount. That's where the interest is on. So not the final amount, the initial amount, which is also referred to as the starting amount. So that's a few tips that I would like to give you. So let's look at an example. Okay, so let's say we have a question that says, if you invest 300 Rand at 15% for 3 years, then they ask you, what's your final amount? Maybe what will be the final amount after 3 years? After 3 years. So how would you go about it? First things first, you put in your formula. You do get marks for writing down your formula, so please do make sure that you always write down your formula. P1 plus I multiplied by N. We're looking for the final amount. Our initial amount is 300. 1 plus I. What did I say when it comes to the interest rate? It always needs to be as a decimal. So you can just say 15 over 100, or you can just put 15 over 100 in your calculator and then come substitute. Then multiplied, so I just like putting some brackets, multiplied by 3 years. And then we have that. And if you punch everything in your calculator, you should be able to get 435. And that's it. So one of the things that you need to also keep in mind is the fact that simple interest grows slowly but steadily. Okay, so that's when it comes to interest amount. So you can see that the growth is after 3 years, if I put in 300, I'm going to walk away with 435. It's not really much. You might be expecting something more after 3 years, but yeah, it's not that much. Okay, so that is it when it comes to our simple interest. So now let's have a look at the next section. And the next section is your compound interest or your compound growth. Or compound growth. Again, different textbooks use different terminology, so just make sure you're familiar with everything. Compound interest is where things grow on top of growth. So it grows on top of growth. Grow on top of growth. We'll look at an example just now. So think of rabbits, right? You have 4 rabbits. Each rabbit has babies. Then those babies also have babies. It's like it's just like that cycle. It grows fast because you keep multiplying the new amount. So that's the whole concept when it comes to compound interest. It grows fast because you keep multiplying the new amount. And the formula for this is as follows. So the formula is A is equals to P, 1 plus I to the power of N. Same concept with those ones, A being your final amount, P being your starting amount, N number of years, interest, same thing. But the only difference is the fact that your N is there to the power of. Okay, so that's the difference between the compound and the simple interest. So whenever we're looking at compound interest, it always grows faster than simple interest. So with compound, it grows faster than simple interest. Grows faster. It uses the previous total all the time. Previous total, and it's just exponential growth. So that's just a few points when it comes to our compound interest. So let's look at an example. So let's say the question says to us 500 at 11% for 3 years becomes 683.82. So the trick is to just always use your calculator. Okay, so over here, literally, it's the same concept. I mean, they even gave us the answer. So we can just say A is equals to Pi 1 plus I to the power of N, and A is 6. Literally, this is not even a good question. 500, 1 plus I, which is 11 over 100 to the power of 3, and that should give us this. That's just really testing to see if you know how to use the formula. If you have something that's missing, so let's say, for example, they give you the value of A, they give you P, but they don't give you N. You literally just substitute, okay? You substitute what you have, and then you solve for what you don't have, and then automatically you'll be able to get to your answer, okay? So it's almost just like solving for X. That's just how you go about it. But yeah, they were just telling us that you start off at 500, at 11% for 3 years, it will become that. So if you just punch this in your calculator, it should be able to give you that answer. So that's that when it comes to your compound interest or your compound growth. So let's move on and let's look at the third thing, which is hire purchase. Okay, so hire purchase is when you buy something and pay it off monthly, but you pay more because of interest. So let's say, for example, you pay for a phone. The phone is 200 Rand a month. Then you pay 200 Rand for 36 months, and then you get whatever. That's how much you pay. Whereas if you paid it once off, it was going to be cheaper. That's the thing that they do. They trap us into thinking that if you just pay 200 to get that iPhone, it will be so cheap, but then after that 36 months, you would have paid an arm and a leg for it. So that is an example of hire purchase. When you buy something and you pay it off monthly, but you end up paying more because of interest. They charge you interest. So it does seem a little bit cheap, but in the long run, it is expensive. So I mean, if you don't have the money to buy it cash, then you can't, yeah, they may not say that. So this, an example for this can be TVs, can be phones, furniture, cars as well. They do that. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure you're all familiar with, the concept that, is explained here, which is the hire purchase. Maybe you might have not heard, it's called hire purchase, but I'm sure everyone is aware, about those monthly contracts and whatnot. So whenever we're having this, we have the cash price, we have the deposit, we have monthly installments, as well as the interest. So we'll have the cash price, we'll have the deposit. So the deposit is how much you're paying upfront. And then you have the monthly installments. And interest as well. So that's really what's involved whenever we're talking about hire purchase. So for an exam tip, always compare the cash versus the total paid. So always compare, because sometimes they'll say to you, is this person losing, or are they gaining, or are they saving money? So you need to always compare the cash versus the total paid. Because, for example, if the phone costs me 11K and I end up paying 20K because I was on hire purchase, I could have just bought it cash, like really. So the hire purchase was just too expensive in this case. So I mean, it's always really gonna be expensive in any case. So hire purchase is always more expensive than cash. So don't think that if they say you pay this for 2 months, it's cheaper. It's just more expensive. It's just a way to get people to think that, but it's not. So it's always more expensive than paying cash. But I mean, sometimes the money is not there to buy something cash. So what do? You gotta do what you gotta do. So yeah. That's the whole idea when it comes to the hire purchase. And then we also have inflation. So when it comes to inflation, it just means prices increase over time. So prices increase over time. So let's say, for example, bread used to cost 2 rand. Now it costs 15 rand. Well, it's not even 15 rand. It's probably more than 15 rand. But yeah, that's what we mean when we're talking about inflation. Okay, so when something used to cost 2 rand and now all of a sudden it costs 15 rand. Why? Because money loses value over time. That's just a fact. Money loses value over time. That's what inflation is all about. So inflation behaves like compound interest. It behaves like compound interest, meaning it just exponentially behaves like compound interest. So that means that every year prices increase on top of the previous price. So if you had the bread and the bread was costing like 2 rand, now it's going to increase by saying plus 4 rand. And now we're going to pay 6 rand. Now the next time they're going to say plus 2, which is now 8 rand. So now that's what I mean when it says behaves like compound interest. It grows on the previous amount. So this plus 2 we added on this amount. This plus 4 we added on this amount. They're not going to say, okay, now we're increasing bread, so let's go back to the 2 rand initial amount. They're going from this 6 rand that you're seeing now. They're going to keep adding. So now we're paying roughly 20 something for bread. Let's just say 22 rand for bread. I think at some point it's going to end up being 50 rand for bread, honestly. But yeah, that's what it means when we're talking about inflation. And then another thing that we have is population growth. So population growth works similar to your compound interest. Let me do this. Population growth. So this is similar to compound interest. Compound interest or compound growth. For example, towns, bacteria, animals, it just grows, and yeah, it's just something that grows like quick. If one time the population is like 20 people, next thing you know it, there's 40 people. Next thing you know it, there's 100 people. So it just keeps growing on top of the previous people. Like it's not gonna say now there's 20 people and then after that we're gonna start from 0 and then now have 20 people again. It grows from there and there and there because people make babies and then babies make babies, and yeah, the whole shebang. So it keeps going on and on and on and on. So that's when it comes to population growth. So population grows faster over time because each population creates more growth. Each population creates more growth. Creates more growth. It's like what I was saying. There's 2 people. This is person 1 and person 2. Then they make babies. Now there's a total of 1, 2. Maybe that's like the baby, and then the other baby, and then that other parent. Now there are 4. Now on top of those 4, it's gonna grow, and now we're gonna have 6 people, for example. So you see how it's growing. Population creates more growth. They had a baby, those babies are gonna have babies. Now we're gonna end up having 8 people or even more. So that's when it comes with population growth. That's what we're talking about when we say population growth. With this is the same formula as your compound interest. So same formula. I'm not going to really sit long on it at all. A is equals to P1 plus I to the power of N. Same formula as compound interest. If you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments below, or reach out and I'll assist. Then we have exchange rates. So when we're talking about exchange rates, we're talking about how we convert money between countries. So converting money between countries. So you're here in South Africa, for example, you go over to the States, now you have to take your 10,000 Rand, converted to dollars. Probably will even have less money when you get there. But yeah, that's exchange rates. It's knowing how much money you have when you get to another country. If people from the America or places where they're using dollars and they come to South Africa, they'll have more money because the dollars is more value than the rands. Okay, so like I said, exchange rates changing from rand to dollars or rand to pounds or the other way around. Okay, so that's what we mean when we're talking about exchange rates. So you always need to check, are you multiplying or dividing? So for example, if 1 rand is equals to $0.11, for example, then you multiplying. If $1 is equals to 18 rand, then you divide or multiply accordingly. Divide or multiply accordingly. So it will depend on the question that they're asking you, but essentially that's how you would go about your exchange rate. So it's all about how much money will you have when you get to another country. Sometimes they will even give you some sort of table. I've seen when they give like a table and then they put the amounts there to say, okay, this is maybe $1 and then this is 18 rand, etc. And then they want you to see, okay, how much did you lose, or what's the difference or the exchange rate between the two. So once you just figure that out, you'll be able to know how to go about the exchange rates. So basically this is really just like a touch recap of everything when it comes to what we just looked at. If you guys have questions, maybe you'd like for me to do a video where I'm going over some examples, I'll see if I can do maybe another video like a part 3 where we're looking at examples. I think that's a good idea. I'll do that, and then you guys can have a look at that video. And then yeah, it will have all these topics that we just discussed. I'll just be looking at some exam questions, exam papers for each section, just so that we can have some more practice, practice. So now you understand how money grows, how prices increase, and how banks calculate interest. So like I'm saying, in part 3, we're going to do exam questions, past papers, tricks so you can use to get started, with your exams, and make sure that you get full marks, or at least, most marks. So yeah, I hope this video made sense. I hope that you guys understood. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below and like this video if it helped you. Subscribe and comment which topic you're struggling with so that we can have a discussion on that in the next video. Thank you so much for watching, and yeah, I'll see you guys in part 3.